What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you like and subscribe. This is the next video in my 2026 season preview series, where today we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns. Now, if you haven't seen one of these videos, I'm basically just going in alphabetical order by team. So every team before Cleveland alphabetically is already on my channel. Arizona through Carolina at this point is where we're at. So if you haven't watched one of these videos, I'm basically just going to go through a review of what 2025 looked like for both offense and defense, what the offseason looked like from a addition and departure standpoint for each side of the ball, get into the schedule as well as some record predictions to finish off the video. Now, starting with the offensive review for the Cleveland Browns, there's really only two guys that you want to highlight because this team didn't necessarily have a quarterback last year, but they still had two of the best rookies in the NFL last year. Quinshon Judkins, over 800 yards on less than 4 yards a carry, which isn't a great number, but 7 touchdowns. Harold Fannin was an incredible player, not just as a tight end, but he also was just kind of like a play everywhere type of player. You can line him up anywhere. His yards after catch numbers last year were absolutely incredible, and that's kind of what made him such an intriguing prospect coming out of Bowling Green State, is that this guy could just get the ball and run. He's faster than any defensive lineman or linebacker on the field, and he's as fast, if not faster, than some of the defensive backs that he was on the field with, not just in college, but now in the NFL. This guy is just an athletic monster, and he's going to be a piece for Cleveland to build around for the future. Cleveland did make some decent additions to the offense in the offseason this year, signing Zion Johnson and Elgton Jenkins to be main pieces on the offensive line. They also drafted Spencer Fano with the 9th overall pick out of Utah. They get Austin Barger and Parker Brailsford for some offensive line depth as well. But the two big pieces that I think every Cleveland Browns fan and many NFL fans are going to be intrigued with how they pan out are the wide receiver selections. Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M with the 24th overall selection. It says second round on your screen, but that is not the case. It was a second round or a first round pick. The same thing with Denzel Boston. It was the 39th overall selection in the second round, not the third. But even the interesting selection of somebody like a Taylon Green from Arkansas in the 6th round. We have no idea who is going to be the quarterback this year, so it's going to be interesting to see in the preseason who or where Taylon Green plays, if he's playing with second, third team, or if he's just going to kind of, in the preseason games, get the reps he gets, and they're going to go from there. But I think it's an interesting selection given where this quarterback room is in Cleveland. And you can see why the offensive line had such a huge investment in it in the offseason, both through the draft and free agency. You see Wyatt Teller, Ethan Pocic, Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio, all guys that are gone from last year's team, and all guys who have played major roles for this offensive line. Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio were one of the best offensive line guard duos in the NFL. They've always been towards the top of the league in terms of who around the league thinks has good offensive linemen. Cleveland has always had good offensive linemen since Teller and Bitonio have been around. Ethan Pocic signed a 1-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. The amount isn't really known. And David Njoku signing with the LA Chargers on a 1-year, $3 million deal. The emergence of Harold Fannin really made Njoku expendable, and it honestly was a bit surprising to see him only get $3 million, but that's just kind of where his market was. Now, the storylines I have for Cleveland in 2026, I really wonder who's going to finish the year as QB1. Is it Deshaun Watson? Is it Shedeur Sanders? Is it Taylon Green? Is it Dylan Gabriel? We really don't know. In my opinion, this team, no matter who finishes as QB1, they don't have somebody for the future. And I think that is as big of a storyline as anything, is that, what's the plan? Are we tanking for Archie Manning or one of the other guys that's going to come out in 2027? What are we doing there? That's really my question. Jerry Jeudy, is he possibly on the trade block? This team doesn't just have Denzel Boston and Casey Concepcion. They also have Harold Fannin. They also have Quinshon Judkins. They have a really young core of offensive players, and I just don't know if Jerry Jeudy really fits into that same aspect. He is a younger player, but compared to the rest of this team, he's a veteran. And I think his services would probably be better used elsewhere as a number 2 receiver on a really good team, not the number 1 guy on a really terrible team with no quarterback. And the third storyline I have is new head coach Todd Monken and offensive coordinator Travis Switzer. These are two guys who are rookies at their position. This is the first head coaching position for Todd Monken in the NFL. This is the first offensive coordinator role for Travis Switzer in the NFL. Both are going to have new things kind of flying at them this year, and it's going to be a storyline to see how they react week after week depending on how things go. Shifting over to the defense, this was a team who had the Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year on the same exact team. Can't remember when the last time that happened was, but I'm sure it's been a long time. Myles Garrett with the NFL record of sacks last year, almost 40 quarterback hits and 33 tackles for loss, while Carson Schlesinger led this team in tackles. He also chipped in 2.5 sacks as well. This was a decent defense last year. I mean, middle of the pack is really the worst that they were. They just didn't take the ball away very much. And there's going to be a departure that everybody knows that's definitely going to hurt their ability to stop the pass and take the ball away. But everything else on this defense, you have some building blocks. You have Carson Schlesinger. You have a good cornerback in Denzel Ward. You have some young pieces to build around. But like I said, there's obviously one big departure that we will talk about here shortly. I think this team did add some solid pieces defensively in free agency and in the draft. They drafted Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo with their second-round pick, 58th overall. They get Quincy Williams on a 2-year, $13 million deal to kind of anchor that linebacker spot. And they trade for Los Angeles Rams defensive end Jared Verse. Again, there's a piece to that trade that we'll get to shortly, but Jared Verse, a really good young player as a pass rusher. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been a guy who in playoff games has performed well. He's a very solid piece for this team to build on going forward. And obviously, I've already mentioned it, the big departure for this team, Myles Garrett being traded to the Los Angeles Rams for Jared Verse, a 2027 first-round pick, 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 third-round pick. Obviously, the biggest loss defensively that any team suffered this year was Myles Garrett being traded away. The best thing that Cleveland can say is that they got some value out of the deal. They got a really good young player in Jared Verse. They got a first-round pick, and they got multiple picks going forward for Myles Garrett. The departure of Myles Garrett leads me to two of my main storylines for this defense. What is the drop-off in the first year without Myles Garrett going to look like? This team heavily relied on Myles Garrett to not just generate pressure. He was a very, very elite player in the running game as well. And just his presence. There's no longer going to be one guy that could demand 2 to 3 blockers on any given down. Even as good as Jared Verse is, and that's my second storyline, is can he come anywhere close to Myles Garrett? Even if he's 50% of what Myles Garrett has been in Cleveland, Jared Verse is more than going to be an elite return in exchange for Myles Garrett. But just, is he going to come anywhere close? Again, if he's anything close to even 50% of the production that Myles Garrett produced, he's going to be a really good asset for Cleveland, a really good player for them going forward. And I think really the other player you kind of have to look at after the Myles Garrett trade is what's going to happen with Denzel Ward. Could he be the next guy traded? I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling Cleveland if they're 2-5, if they're 1-6, if they're 0-7. There's going to be a lot of teams calling Cleveland and saying, hey man, you've got a really good cornerback on your team. Don't waste his talent. Trade him to somewhere he can win some football games. And I think Denzel Ward might, as much as he says he loves being in Cleveland, he might welcome being on a winning team as well. The schedule for Cleveland in 2026, I don't think it's incredibly difficult. I think given how bad of a roster Cleveland is, makes it worse than it is. But you see some games laid in within this season, at New York, both New York teams this year, at Tennessee, you have Las Vegas and New Orleans on the schedule as well. I think there's some winnable games. I do think, Cleveland is towards the bottom of the league when it comes to talent on their roster, even if they have some really talented players that they drafted or added or, got last year. This team is still without the main piece, and that's the quarterback. So this team is still going to be playing behind the 8 ball in many of these games. Which leads me to my record prediction for the Cleveland Browns. I think this could be one of the first teams that we see, not one of, the first team that we see ever go 0-17. I think regardless of whether Deshaun Watson is playing quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Taylor Green, or insert whatever free agent quarterback here's name is, this team has no quarterback. Whether it's the future quarterback, whether it's the present quarterback, they don't have a quarterback. They also have a rookie head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. 3 guys who, all within the same year, are going to have a job for the very first time. Now, while there's some winnable games, which is why I think as a floor they should be able to win a couple of them, I think the best this team is going to do is 5-12. They still have some solid pieces. They still have some young, really good players that they've added these last couple of years, but they still are a quarterback away, in my opinion. And that one piece is definitely worth 4 or 5 wins. And Cleveland doesn't have that ability to say, you know what, we're going to beat the Tennessees of the world because we have a good quarterback. We're going to beat the Jets of the world where, our quarterback is just much more talented than theirs is. Even though the Jets themselves are in a position where they have no quarterback. That's going to be it for this video. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure if you want to see a video, like I said at the beginning, I've done Arizona through Carolina at this point. Now I've added Cleveland to the list of teams. But if you are a fan of a team that I haven't done a video on yet, just leave a comment down below. I have no issue with not going in alphabetical order. That's just kind of how these videos have come out so far. So like I said, make sure you leave a comment, make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.